Hello and welcome to the Marketing Times Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Sofronas, and today we're on with Nader Safinya. Nader, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Nader Safinya. I am known as the culture branding guy and also the founder of Blackribbit, which is a culture branding agency that I founded about 7 years ago.
Awesome. Tell us more about culture branding.
Culture branding is a subject that I landed into, which in essence means a company is aligned with what they say and what they do. So what they say actually matches what they do, and the market is getting what the market sees. It came out of the realization that there's a great big disconnect between what companies say and what they actually do. And the reason for that is I found, let me back up a little bit. In 2021, the Great Resignation happened. It was the year after COVID. I launched my company in 2018, rebranded as Blackribbit in 2019, and I targeted the hospitality industry in the fall of 19. 5 months later, that entire industry shut down. So in 2021, my business was tanking, and I started looking for work just because I needed a job while the business was still going, but I needed something. So I applied to about 460 jobs in 6 months. And I got 60 denial letters, all of which were clearly from robots. I got one interview with after which the job was eliminated anyway. The job never was available after I made it to the hiring round. And 400 ghosts. This was making me feel insane. It made me feel crazy, inadequate, just completely useless, like a total loser. And I didn't know what to do. I have a master's degree, I have a bachelor's degree. At the time, I had 16 years of field experience. It was just very weird. And I started talking to a bunch of people and realized that the same thing is happening all over the place. You have very talented, very ambitious people, and those two traits don't usually go hand in hand. I just started digging and trying to understand what's going on here. Why is this such a common problem right now? Not to mention, you have millions of people literally leaving their jobs. So would that mathematically mean that jobs are available? It was just a very weird time. And I learned that traditional branding, myself included, marketing, sales, leadership, even focuses primarily, if not exclusively, on the customer experience. And the employee experience is neglected. And then you have HR, change management, recruiting, coaching, and so on, focused on the employee experience. And these two never speak. So you have this great disconnect between the employee employer relationship and the employee and customer relationship. So ultimately, the market is not getting what the market sees. And the first place you notice this disconnect is actually in the job application program. So what I noticed is that their job application process. And so what I noticed is that because of this disconnect, there's a break in communication with what the market expects from an organization versus what the market gets. And that is culture branding, where a company's culture is actually connected to every single experience across the board, inside and outside of a company, so that when an employee and a customer meet for the first time, they tell the same story.
That makes a lot of sense, and I've definitely heard a lot of stories like that, which it's really sad to see. I'm curious, typically when we think about branding, we think about organic ads, paid ads. What are the ways that an organic brand is communicated in terms of the employee experience?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. It's actually the same. So if you consider, so what is a brand? A brand by definition is our gut feeling about a person, place, or thing. It's not a tangible thing. It's how we feel about something. It's a reaction to a behavior. So branding, by that definition, is an emotional contract. So every single touch point that represents an organization or a person or otherwise is an emotional contract between that place and the recipient. So that interaction is a reflection of who you are, of your values, of your belief system, and so on. And the experience you're trying to create is your branding. So in essence, if you value X, Y, and Z, then you want people to feel A, B, and C. You should do everything in your power to make sure that every interaction results in that A, B, and C, and that it reflects X, Y, and Z. So in an employee experience, it's the same thing. It's the second they hear about your company, they feel like you're speaking to them. They see a job posting, they feel like you're speaking to them, not at them. You're not demanding you get to do this for us, you're going to do that for us. Your involvement is going to help the customer success story, blah blah blah. Nowhere in a job description does it ever say what the organization is going to do for the candidate. I ask you, when is the last time you read a job description that actually addresses how that job will impact a candidate's quality of life? So if you consider branding an emotional contract, then for the employee experience, from point A, which is when they hear about you, to point B, which is when they apply to work for you, and so on, or when they read the job app, and then so on, then the interview process, then the hiring process, and then the onboarding process. You may have heard stories as well where I have so many friends who they get hired, first of all, after a very cumbersome experience. Now they're like, oh yeah, okay, I got the job after how many weeks, maybe even months of just grueling, feeling crazy and all this. And then they get the job, they arrive, there's nobody there to greet them. Literally, they like just sit there for the whole day. And because they're new and they're like, do I go tell someone that I'm here? Someone showed me to a desk, but there's no computer, there's no wires. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. I've heard more than enough stories about that, which is weird. That should not even happen. So that's how you ensure a good experience for your employees. You just treat them like people. The biggest problem, man, is employees to this day. Of course, I'm generalizing, but it's a big generalization. Candidates, especially, but employees are still treated like equipment. They're still treated like gears. It's not a employers don't see dollar signs. And the irony is that customers aren't even treated like people. They're treated like dollar signs. So culture branding blows this all out of the water to the point where it's driven by human-centered design and design thinking to truly empathize with the end user first.
And what are the kind of benefits that a business can see when they invest in culture branding?
Quite a few. Right off the bat, it's just the emotional component of feeling hopeful and optimistic that something real is about to happen. In our process, our program is a 4-month program that starts with an evaluation that begins with a lot of interviews, just talking to staff, and not just leadership. It's we speak to everybody up and down the ladder. So I'm talking like security guards and custodians up to leadership and C-level. When that starts happening instantly, because people below even middle management usually are not involved in these processes. And so the second that we walk in the door and start doing that, there's this sense of relief. And so that's an intangible return, but it's game changing. And then we collaborate all the way throughout that 4 months and ensure buy-in at every step, so that because the leadership team and the project management team on the client side is very much part of the process. And then beyond that, now there's clarity and direction. And so we put in systems and processes that are creating efficiencies across onboarding, reducing onboarding time, reducing turnover during onboarding. For example, if you have 90-day onboarding periods, which is pretty standard, you're seeing reduction in turnover by 86%. And off the bat, because again, you're going into the client is now implementing a process that we created that's very deliberately created for the profile of the employee. In the long run, you'll start seeing financial gains from the customer side in about, on the lowest end, it's like 12 months, but standard, it's about 18 months. They start recognizing internal returns on their investment very quickly, though.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, it's very costly to businesses when there's turnover in that onboarding period. So it makes a lot of sense to invest in improving that experience and just generally improving the employee experience. I know at my current company, one of the indicators of a really healthy environment was there was a lot of babies. A lot of employees had families and expanded their families. And I thought that's a good sign. That means that people feel safe, that they feel like they're bringing value, and that the business is trustworthy and will last. And I think that's a beautiful thing that people feel comfortable, and because you're not going to do that if you feel like things might change tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might be a fun metric to throw in there.
I love that. I don't often say I love. That's a very overused statement, but I do love that. That's so if I may, so my big vision here through because of my own experiences and so on is to make humanity harmonious by lifting our relationship with the workplace. That's my formalized sort of vision. And when you think about it, the workplace is a microcosm for society. It's an example or a template of what society can be like and what it often is because of various systems, the interconnectedness of people, places, and things, the relationships, intercultural relationships. If you have a multicultural organization, you know how language barriers work, all of it, right? Leadership, and then subordinates, and just everything across the board. To your point, even babies, and the so what's the philosophy behind this concept of culture branding is that when a workplace is healthy and people feel seen and heard and acknowledged, they inherently become more productive. If they feel safe psychologically in being able to voice their opinions, to be able to speak with each other, to be able to speak up and down the ladder without any fear of reprimand or anything like that, and there's also a give and take between the organization and its employees, then you're creating a very holistically, truthfully inclusive space. It's not just based on, oh, we want to be inclusive, therefore we're inclusive. It's actually based on very specific characteristics, specific exchanges, and so on. And studies show consistently that one of the greatest catalysts for joy is just productivity, just feeling useful, like you're contributing. It doesn't have to be a certain kind of productivity. It just means that you finished your day by doing something that was of value to you. That's basically what that means. And you feel fulfilled because of it. And when we feel fulfilled, we feel joy. Joy and happiness are not really the same thing, but like feeling joy is just feeling fulfilled, feeling good about yourself. So you start culminating this energy inside of you that is very, what's the word I'm looking for, it's resonant, it's visceral, and people can feel it. So when you go out into when you leave work and you go home and you hug your family hello, that's coming from a place of joy, not misery, and you're coming from a place of positive reinforcement and so on. So now every interaction that you have in your community, with your bartender, with your barber, with your family, with whoever, is a positive one. And so my big bold statement is that if we're talking about the global phenomena of discomfort and conflict and contention, and if we can create positive environments to solve these problems little by little, those solutions can start in the workplace, because the workplace is where we spend most of our time, and it is a microcosm for society. So it can absolutely be a catalyst for world peace if you can actually build little systems that ultimately expand and influence other systems because they're influential, than a step-by-step model where you're just doing this big global problem a favor by solving it little by little, could lead to something pretty amazing. And I've seen this in my visions, and I believe it to be true.
I love that. Yeah. So, what can business owners or business leaders do today to help improve that experience for their employees?
Honestly, it's the big question that I always ask. If you truly want if you want your workplace to be better, if you want your workplace to be somewhere that everybody wants to work for, if that people want to buy from, the two big questions that culture branding answers is why would anyone want to buy from you and why would anyone want to work for you? Now, mind the syntax, because it's not why should anyone work for you or why should anyone buy from you. That's easy to say, right? You and I can sit here and be like, I know why you should be my friend. I can list all the reasons why I think I'm so cool, but I don't know why you would want to be my friend. I would have to empathize with you. I have to understand where you're coming from. I have to understand what your motives are, what your background is. I don't know the traumas you've faced in your life and otherwise. So why would I be a good choice for you? That takes guts. That takes some serious self reflection as well. So, the first thing leadership should ever do is look at themselves dead in the mirror, right in the eyes, and ask, would you work for you? And just really have an introspective moment and just think, what is it going to take to make a better work environment that not only reflects my values because this is a place that I've built, but is also respectful of those that I want to be a part of this thing? Because not everyone's going to be built for it. And that's what's interesting. We always have to remember that, first of all, we can't please everybody. And two, not everyone is going to want to work here. But if you can define why anyone would want to, then you'll start finding the right people and you'll be respectful of their time as well as your own.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love that take on introspection and would you work for you? That's a great mindset to have.
It's scary. It's not a looking at yourself in the, because people have tried this exercise, but they say it wrong. They'll be like, would I work for me? And I'm like, no, that's not how you say it. You have to look at yourself as if you're someone else and then say, would you work for you? But you're looking at yourself. So it's really uncomfortable if you're not an introspective person by nature. And I was recently, I was giving a talk recently and I asked right off at the top, I said, how many of you actively self reflect and introspect? And I think there was about 30 people in the room. I got maybe 10 or 12 hands raised. And then I asked, how many of you do it every day? And nobody raised their hand. And one person actually said, who has time for that? And I say, you have to make time for that literally every second of the day. If you're like me, which I don't want to say because I do it, you should be able to do it. That's not fair. We're not the same people. But if you're like me, then you will consistently challenge yourself. I'm not saying it's fun all the time. It's actually it can be quite contentious, but it's a model of just consistent strive for improvement, whatever that means. Improvement is subjective. So if it's, if we think about it like, I want tomorrow to be better than today, I want every day to be better than the next, I want myself to be better than yesterday, then why not do that every second of the day? And that is a hard thing to do. It's challenging because you're living your life, you're doing your work, you're distracted by whatever. But if you can create a system within yourself that's habitually just going, okay, never do that again, do it this way. Or why did I do that? What was good about that? Let's do that again. And so on. And then eventually you'll get to a place where you can consistently think about what is it about me that I want others to know about or I want others to interact with? And is that good for them?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful. I want to ask about diagnosing issues with employees in the workplace from the perspective of data. So you mentioned that you can look at early churn essentially of employees in their
Yeah.
in their onboarding period. What about ongoing, like employee engagement? We have all of these tools that allow for broad analysis of engagement patterns, just like I'm sure we can look at sentiment across like employee communications. I'm curious, like, what kinds of data can you look at for your current employees after that onboarding period to help diagnose some of these challenges and approach a solution?
Sure. So at my company, at Blackribbit, we put in our own, we have a few of our own data collection methods. We also recently integrated a new tool called the Culture MRI. And that is state of the art in its prowess, because it not only measures employee well-being across 15 different needs and 3 different sort of categorical psychological makeups, as it were, like what is the driver of certain personalities. It's simplified it in a very, this almost sounds like an oxymoron, but it's simplified it in a robust way. It's taken something very complex, underlying drivers and motivators of human behavior, and simplified it in a way that not only measures human behavior and employee well-being based on factors and stimulus and so on within their environment, it also attaches it to financial implications of what that means. So it ties productivity or lack thereof to money. And outside of that, we also have very standard qualitative design study methods where we just do interviews. We check in with employees every quarter. So once we develop or deliver our culture branding program and we start actually installing it and implementing it across the board for our customers, that include quarterly check-ins through interviews and surveys to ensure that the program that we have now created, that is all about their people and human focused and so on, is actually doing what we said it would do. And my model is rooted in design thinking. So design thinking is a cyclical process where it requires a feedback loop for it to work. It's linear in that it moves forward, but it's always rotating. So in the easiest definition, design thinking is exploiting the past to explore the future. So every time we go in, okay, we did all this work. We've been training you guys. We've been training the teams. We've been training the supervisors to start manifesting the culture branding into the lifestyles and the lives of the organization. Is it happening? Is there alignment between a person's purpose and their job, for example? Is there alignment between leadership and employees? Is there trust between employees and leadership? Is that trust score improving? Did it reduce all of a sudden? If it did, why did it reduce? And then again, through the CMRI, we connect it to also financial churn and financial implications, because at the end of the day, a business is a business, and we need to know how this is impacting the bottom line as well, because no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a financial investment here or there to either pick it back up or bring it back down or whatever.
Yeah, I like that, because that's what differentiates the CMRI from an eNPS score, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because NPS doesn't really talk about the financial side.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know of another tool that does. I've actually, because you and I know branding and culture are they're soft subjects. And I actually, what's innovative about the culture branding program that I've created is the fact that it's operationalizing culture and branding, not just through systems and processes, but also through financial implications in a way that creates a very clear-cut, defined, scalable model that, again, is rooted in design thinking, therefore is flexible to external circumstances. So that's why it's so powerful, because it's built in a way that allows for adjustment based on market circumstances, and culture circumstances, socioeconomic issues, whatever that's happening externally will impact everything always. But this program is designed to be able to dance with the stimulus that's happening inside and outside of the organization while taking into consideration financial implications.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah, I really appreciate everything that you've shared. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Again, it bears repeating. If If you want to be a better leader, if you want to be a better employee, if you want to create an atmosphere of cohesion, of collaboration that just makes everyone in the room feel better, just start with yourself. Ask, would you want to work for you? Would you want to buy from you? It will inherently, instantly improve your interactions because you're coming from a place of camaraderie and collective growth as opposed to a place of I want this thing from you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nader. I really appreciate your time, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Alex.